I'm delighted to have Irene with us today. Irene Bourne, the pastoral assistant for the Southern Ministry area, or really for Romsey. So Irene, great to have you here.
Good to be here.
Just perhaps briefly you could tell us what that role is, what's involved and how long you've been doing it.
I think I've been doing it since about 2007. I'm not exactly sure, but I think since 2007. Started off with a much wider area involving the Forest Edge churches, and it's slimmed down a lot since then, which is really good because the Romsey Church is growing. My role, I think, is, although we have pastoral visitors, there are sometimes people in real crisis, and it's then when I step in and I'm with them as they go through the crisis and hopefully come out the other side. It's a very privileged role to have. And the wonderful thing about it is that I get a chance to listen to their journey of faith, which doesn't happen straight away, because we start usually dealing with practical things and the emotional trauma that people are going through. But eventually, we get to talk about our faith, which we don't normally get to do on a Sunday.
Yeah, indeed. And I imagine that contact is by telephone, by visit, by email, by any kind of manner you can come up with, is it?
Yes, it can be either a physical visit, maybe just a telephone call. During COVID, I kept in touch with people via email and telephone calls. I did find that more difficult because I relate to people, I think, better when I'm sitting with them, and that's part of my personality and nothing to do with them. It's just how I feel more comfortable. And it also enables me, when I'm with a person, to understand what's going on beneath what they're saying, because sometimes they will, as we all do, say what they want us to hear to make us feel comfortable, and that's not what it's about.
The theme of this week's service is caring, as part of our Faith on the Frontline series. How do you see caring as an expression of the gospel?
I think part of it goes back to me thinking about James when he talks about faith in action, and I am a doer. And that is the only way I think I can express my faith. It hasn't always been like that. I think Gareth knows I started my professional life in the civil service, very comfortable. And then I had a wake-up call from a doctor who happened to be a non-stipend vicar in the Anglican Church. And he challenged me to step out of my comfort zone. And I mentioned the word niddled. Yes. And I was niddled by Joe Metcalfe.
I love niddled.
And I think that it was God who was telling Joe to talk to me, because God uses all different people to talk to you. So I was niddled into stepping out of my comfort zone and applying for a job on a very deprived council estate, working with people recovering from mental illness. And I just fell into the role, and I loved the role, and the rest has been history. So since then, and I was in my early 40s when that happened. I then went to work for the Society of St James when we moved down here. I've worked in an 84-bed hostel for homeless men, and that is the way I can express my caring.
Yeah.
And how I can express, when given the opportunity, my faith. Because I do get asked, why do you do it? And it's just part of showing Christ's love. He's only got us here. We're not very good at, of showing our faith, I don't think, sometimes. So that's probably the best way for me that I can show that this is the Christ I believe in. This is how much God loves me, and I want you to know how much God loves you. And I think that needs to be very inclusive, and it needs to be wider than the people who come to church on a Sunday, because I don't think church is just for Sundays.
Excellent.
I think it needs to go out into our personal lives and be in action there.
Now, the last question is, what could we as church pray for you, both in your role and in any other part of your life that you want prayer for?
I think energy. I'd like a bit more energy to keep going. And I do feel people do pray for me, and I get phone calls out of the blue. There's one lady who rings me every week and says, I pray for you and thank you for all you do. And that's an amazing, amazing thing to happen. And I do feel loved. I feel loved by God. I feel loved by this church. And I feel loved by the people who I come into contact with. When I do visit people, it's wonderful to see them, to meet them on a journey where it's not so good, and then be with them on that journey and find that they've come out the other side. And that's a blessing, a real blessing.
Thank you. We appreciate you and the work you do. We'll continue to pray for lots of energy so you can keep doing it for a while yet.
Yes, I'd like to.
Lovely.
Thank
Bless
you.
you. Thanks.
Thank you, Gareth, and for your support.